This is the Servers Radio Network. Welcome to A Server's Journey, and what a journey it is. I'm Larry the K.
Yeah, and I'm Rocky DeStefano, and we welcome you to an episode here, and we have Foster, who's going to do the entire episode with an Irish accent. Are you not?
I'm totally not, because it's going to become a British accent really fast.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Sorry. I'm not skilled in that category.
Yeah. I don't know the difference between
I know you just really want to hear an Irish accent. I know that you're craving that. You've been stuck hearing Italian accents for your whole life, and
yes,
got to cleanse.
Well, I mean, you're far away, and we do want to say that we're keeping all proper protocol. In fact, Larry's in a hazmat suit, although that's not abnormal. Larry's normally in a hazmat suit.
Yeah, I've heard that's just a Thursday norm.
Did you see that picture on Facebook of the workers at Chick-fil-A someplace were in a yellow cage?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Where was
like
that?
Minions. Yeah.
That was Rocky's store, actually.
Here's my guess: California. I'm just going to say I think it really was California, actually. So not to be stereotypical, but I think that was more weather-induced than COVID-19. But
do you think that somebody had the idea? They're like, this stops rain. Maybe it'll stop a virus.
No, I think there's a lot of crazy ideas out there. Yeah.
Well, this is our special COVID-19 edition of A Server's Journey.
Right, and that's actually a perfect segue, because what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be engaging in, the reality is we haven't seen something like this in America, really. I mean, there were brief spouts of periods like the Hong Kong flu, I believe it was called, back in the late 60s. Actually, the year I was born, 68. But prior to that, it was the Spanish flu, which was way back in the 1918s.
Which I understand came from China as well.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not. In fact, I think the Spanish flu was called the Spanish flu because they were the only country, they were neutral in the war, and they were the only one reporting the truth.
Ah.
So.
And truth is what we're looking for.
Good job, Spaniards. Anyways, but we are going to be talking about, during this crisis, and it is a crisis of global proportions. We're not trying to make light of it. And I know there's all different ideologies on both sides as to how bad this is or where this came from, et cetera. But we're going to kind of avoid all those. And we're just going to take it for what it is. I was looking today, and the number of people that have contracted COVID is now over 4 million people, over 278,000 deaths, 77,000 alone in America. And in particular, it's hitting, of course, people that are at risk, which is a scary, scary situation.
Don't look at me.
Yeah. Larry, you're safe, though.
Yes.
So really what it comes down to is hundreds of thousands of lives have been disrupted. And I don't know, personally don't know that it's getting worse. I think we're testing more, so sometimes the numbers appear worse. But I don't also think we're nearing the end of it. I think this is going to kind of be a crazy, weird, normal, what does normal look like, probably for the next 12 to 18 months until we really get a feel for this.
Yeah, but we've really never we don't have a vaccine for flu. We have flu shots, but they're not vaccines.
Right, yeah.
So I don't think we're ever going to get a vaccine, quote unquote.
Maybe. This is a little more, I think, specific than the flu. Part of the reason with the flu is because there's so many different strains every year, which as far as I'm obviously no doctor, but as far as I know, this is this is a specific strain of the coronavirus.
Yeah, and I think that's, what is this? And we don't really know yet, and it actually is seeming to mutate quickly. In fact, they just released, I know Governor Cuomo just released some information on a COVID-19-like sickness that's now affecting kids.
Oh, no. I think they're just digging up anything they can do. Well, don't get me started here.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's kind of funny because Larry, we talked about Larry. He's the eldest in the room. I'm kind of somewhere closer to middle, and then Foster's a young'un. So
I'm like 16.
Yeah, we do definitely kind of see things differently, which is probably a strength of the show. But one thing we can all talk about is, I know for me, in my day-to-day life, I'm working with teams that are directly on the front line. And I know Foster's working with a lot of young adults and teens and even middle schoolers. Larry works with a variety of different types of people on all of his shows.
And it's amazing they all show up on my video screen.
That's right. Yeah, Zoom. Larry likes Zoom. Larry, honestly, he has adapted to Zoom. Zoom is the answer to everything.
Well, isn't it? I
don't know.
I just wish I had stock.
So, well, lately I've been thinking about what makes great leaders great, and in particular during this pandemic, this COVID-19, because I think more than ever in this kind of time period, leadership shows up. And you can tell what is good leadership and what is bad leadership. And we've already seen some of that, like, was it good leadership for Ruth Chris or Shake Shack to try to take money from the federal government? I don't know. I'm not saying what side I'm on because I really don't know. But what I'm saying is people had really quick reactions, and a lot of people felt like it was not good leadership.
Well, the weird thing is the government sets up these guidelines of what a business is. And some of these businesses are still small businesses. Do you know Howard Hughes used to be a small business?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, he was the richest guy in the world, but he was still a small business according to the government regulations.
Right, because it's really under a certain number of employees and not what your net worth is.
He owned it.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to talk about leadership in general because I think, in my opinion, the leader's primary responsibility during this type of season is to do a few things. Number one, to keep the team calm, which I have found is my number one job. That's what I do more than anything now. Second, you have to keep them safe, or at least as safe as possible. You have to make sure that they're on each other's team, that they're actually fighting for each other instead of fighting against each other. And then overall, we have to make sure that we're efficient.
Now, you're open, right?
Yeah,
and
we
you've
are
been
open
throughout this whole endeavor.
Yeah, we've never shut. We have shut our dining rooms right now, and we're not planning on reopening anytime too soon. And again, it's because we lack control. And if my primary responsibility is to keep the team calm, safe, and efficient, then I don't want to introduce things I have no control over. And once I let people into my store, I lose control. So let's talk about 4 functions that leaders at any level can take. And again, these aren't the only ones, but these are the ones that you don't want to miss in the rush to try to create an effective response to this COVID crisis. Does that make sense? Right. So I'm going to start off, and then Foster and Larry are going to jump in. We have some great quotes, and we're going to kind of talk through some stuff too. But the first one, I would say, number one to me, is to be honest, empathetic, clear, and simple. Create a clear, honest, empathetic, and simple approach to all your communication about this situation until it resolves. And even more importantly, because the situation is constantly evolving, you have to kind of be very clear. And I know this is obvious, but I include it because it's so important, and because we live in an era where we get rapid information, and the rapid information is sometimes of questionable truth, and it's from multiple sources. So I don't know about you guys, but I have sometimes listened to a press conference and felt one thing. I maybe felt hope that we were gaining or winning. And then I would listen to CNN and feel completely different, or listen to Fox and get a different story, or go to Facebook and see a video about how there's these people, we're not quite sure who they are, that are aimed at taking down the entire country. So in a world where we're getting questionable truth from multiple sources, more than ever, we need to be clear and concise with our people.
Yeah. If I can pop in on that real quick, Rock, one thing I think that's, a careful balance in this is, I think you have to find a way to be honest, but not to give false hope. I think that, sometimes, especially right now with what's going on, it's tempting and easy to jump in and try to say, no, this is okay, everything's going to be fine, like it's going to end soon. And I think that's what we hope for. But I think, especially as a leader, you don't want to tell your crew, your team, guys, a couple weeks from me back at it. I think that is wisdom, and it's good to own up and say, honestly, we don't have a clue. We're going to do everything we can to stay safe, but we don't know, when this is going to go back. And I think, because I remember talking with Pastor Brian as we were trying to figure stuff out for the church. I think that there is something hopeful in that, just having a clear answer of we don't know. Like it is concrete. I don't know. It may not be the answer people are looking for, but I think, especially as a leader, it's important to admit when those times are there.
Rocky, how did you approach that when that first started with your team?
Yeah, I think it was very similar to what Foster was saying. I can't know what I can't know. And in the reality of COVID-19, none of us know. I don't think we still know. So I wanted to be seen as a trusted source. I wanted to remember that in any of my communication, it matters less what you're communicating or, the actual message sometimes, and more that your people are just understanding you. The emphasis should be on what your listeners take in, especially in a situation like this that is volatile and unpredictable. So for me, what I was trying to do is say, hey, I don't know, but we're going to discover it together, and we're going to be doing everything we can to keep us as safe with what the information that we believe is a credible source, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So we didn't start by wearing masks, but within a week we were wearing masks. We didn't start with gloves, but within a week we were wearing gloves. Now we're doing 14 things to check and make sure that we're remaining safe at Chick-fil-A. So it's everything from doing our best to keep social distance, doing our best to separate people as much as possible, taking temperatures of our team on the way in and sending people home that have anything that remotely looks like a, an temperature.
Issue. Yeah.
And I mean, everything from every 15 minutes, we have an alarm that goes off and everybody takes their gloves off, washes their hands, re-sanitizes, puts on new gloves. We, every 30 minutes, are cleaning every contact surface that we have, which we have a lot of them. And so we've actually had to put a person who basically does that every 30 minutes. So we're doing all kinds of things. And part of that is, and this is a great quote we had from the great, and you guys maybe have not heard of him, unless you're from Chick-fil-A, you've never heard of a gentleman named Tim Tassopoulos, who is, in my opinion, one of the greatest leaders without a written book. He's never written a book. I don't know that he ever will. But he is quietly one of the best leaders I've ever been under. And he talked to us this week and basically said, culture is the key, but communication is going to be the lifeblood. And so if I'm trying to create a culture that is safe and calm and efficient and builds cohesion, then the communication, what I do is really kind of the lifeblood of it. So, and communicating well with includes not necessarily being a victim of panic, and like Foster said, kind of admitting, hey, we don't really know what and when and how, but we're going to figure it out together. And I do think clear communication, though, is saying the same thing often in different ways. And the hope is that the people that work with you retain the most important parts of it. Does that make sense?
So what are you communicating? Do you go in daily and do this?
Well, and I don't know if it's daily. I think it's several times daily. It's at two different stores, and how I communicate to two different teams with two different personalities is very different. So I definitely adjust a lot between the two stores, but we're definitely communicating here's 14 things we know that will help us be safe and will help us serve a good product to the customer and be efficient.
Rocky, where did those 14 points come from? Did you make them up, or were they?
I think it's a brain trust of a lot of different operators, but a lot of it is Chick-fil-A brought best practices together and then sent them down to us and said, here's 14 things we think you should work on right now.
And you jumped right on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We didn't wait. My fear is now that we're reopened somewhat in Florida, people are lessening their fear.
Right.
So for us, it was a reminder this Monday of, hey, we're not out of the woods. Let's double down on these things like washing hands and changing gloves and all that.
Finish strong.
Yeah. I think no matter what we think, we don't communicate enough. In fact, I think if you ever feel like you're communicating until you're blue in your face, maybe then you're finally starting to be at a level where you're communicating efficiently. Because every company, if you did a survey of them, would say, oh, no, our communication isn't good. Well, that can't be right. I mean, I feel like sometimes I posted a sign, here's all 14. I've told you a dozen times. I've communicated really well, but communication is really in how it's received as much as how it's spoken. So for the reality, maybe the unfortunate reality is you need to keep communicating over and over and over and over again. It's simple. So. All right, Foster, why don't you take point 2?
Yeah, so the second point we're looking at has to do with finding different ways to solve problems. So I think that if you look around, I think it's a common trend that when we look at problems, we tend to look at A or B solution. I hate you or I love you. If you're in a relationship, should we break up? Should we stay together? If I'm failing at this, I should just go ahead and quit. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think especially with what's going on right now, because so many different things are uncertain. Like, let's just be honest. We don't know when it's going to end. We don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of value in being willing to look at multiple options rather than just A and B. I think even what we're doing right now with the youth group, when this all started, a lot of youth groups, I'm part of this group on Facebook, and I was talking with a lot of youth pastors, and they immediately hopped on Zoom. Like, we're doing online meetings, and I saw some of them were saying it was going great. A lot of them said it didn't go well at all. I thought, this is terrible. Like, what kid wants to sit in front of a computer screen for 30 minutes listening to the Bible? I'm gonna be honest. Like, what teen really wants to do that? Yeah. And so after a couple weeks, we tried it, and it actually worked better than I thought. But I will admit, every single week we change it because it changes week to week. One week it's great, the next week it's not, and we adjust something on it. It's not just it didn't go well this week, we're going to throw out Zoom. We're not going to do Zoom anymore.
Well, and I think you work directly with an age group that tends to think this way. I hate them, I love them. Yeah. I hate mom, I love mom. So you're kind of a good petri dish. You're testing things, but I think you are making them kind of pivot, evolve, change. Which is kind of exciting. Yeah,
and I think it throws in my area with teens, I think it definitely throws them for a loop, because I do agree with you. I think that age group, it just kind of exists in extremes. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think that, one thing we have to do right now is, as leaders, I think it's important to evaluate what's going on. And 2 things. 1, don't be in a rush to throw it out the door. Yep. Just because it's not performing perfectly. And then 2, and this is something I learned working with you, I think as leaders, it's hard sometimes to accept input from someone else. That you're working on something, you have this idea, we're going to go like this, and it's not performing great, it's not tanking, but it's not great, and someone else has a third idea that's not yours. Right. And I think it's tough. I mean, I've worked with leaders where in order to get them to get that third idea, you have to convince them it's their third idea. It was their idea. Yeah. And that's just miserable. Like, you have to expend so much energy. Yeah, it really is. I'd rather expend the energy on making this work rather than spending energy on making you believe you came up with it. And so I think as leaders, it's important for us to acknowledge, there's benefit in having a team with a bunch of different thoughts, bunch of different ideas. Yep. I think as leaders, especially with what's going on right now, we have to not be afraid to try other people's ideas. And so right now, that might look like, reducing your full-time work to 80% in a business. Yeah.
I think this is a great point you're bringing up, because I think a lot of people, because, we say kids and teens, they think this way, but there's a lot of fully functioning adults in their
Absolutely.
20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 70s.
Absolutely.
Who are like this. They see one or the other, the extremes, instead of saying what else could be.
Yeah, I think that's just a societal drift right now. Right. That's how we operate. But looking at a business standpoint, because I know a lot of our listeners aren't directly in business, you might look at, okay, this isn't going well. So sometimes your options are, okay, we just close the doors. We're not making enough profit, close the doors. And maybe that's it, but maybe it's something like let's reduce the number of hours. It's not great. Everyone wants their hours, but it's a possibility. Or maybe it's let's create different tasks. So I know you were talking just a minute ago, you're sharing with us that you have someone who their job now is they go and clean contact areas. That was not a job 4 months ago, right?
No, it's not.
And
And honestly, it may not be a job. Honestly, it probably should be, but but we don't even know how long that job will be around.
Yeah.
But at least it gave someone another job, another opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for us, it was kind of like, so immediately when we shut down, hard shut down, middle of March, we went from doing our biggest days ever in both stores to being 20, 30, 40% off of our trend. And at first it's so scary. And so your knee-jerk reaction is cut, and just indiscriminately cut. So we had to take a deep breath and say, okay, what's prudent? And so for us, it was prudent to send an email out to everybody on our staff. We're 240 people. Hey, who doesn't feel comfortable working right now and wants to self-select themselves to stay at home? Now, we have an easier time because we do have teenagers. So teenagers, probably some of them can stay at home without it affecting their mortgage payment.
Right.
But still, it was an outside-the-box thinking, and it wasn't mine. It was really coming from the team of, hey, let's let them tell us. And so we had, I think, almost 50 people select themselves to not be there, and we were able to run the business effectively with the rest, modify what we were doing, and it was a solution to a problem that we never really even thought of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, especially right now, the danger in that, like you said, is that knee-jerk reaction. I had a mentor years ago who told me that you should never make a decision out of fear. And I think that what we're seeing now is a lot of those reactions are being made out of fear. As a business standpoint, I'm not making enough. My red and black's not equaling out my P&L. And so we just got to cut it. And yeah, I think that maybe taking more time and seeing if there's a third alternative could be very beneficial. I mean, I know for you guys, it worked out. I've got students that work for you, and I've talked to other crew members I used to work with you that are all saying, like, we're still managing to get our hours.
Right.
We're doing well business-wise, but it took some restructuring, which probably wasn't easy to pursue that option.
No, but, I think the point in being is that you have to look. I mean, none of us really know. We've not been through, nobody in business today has been through this. Mm-hmm. None of us have. So we can go back and look at what they did back in the 1918s or 1960s, but
it wasn't like this then.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it wasn't. And we didn't have the constant media vomit.
Right.
I don't know how, because that's what I feel like it is sometimes. But
now, Rock, do you feel like, playing off what you just said, do you feel like that you guys are getting a lot of demands from people expecting you to have that solution?
I think that what the environment we're living in now is the first 3 weeks, almost all universally, we got praise. And the praise was, thanks for staying open. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And then it kind of switched, and then you could tell people were agitated. They were agitated because they now were locked in for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and they were just all of a sudden kind of were losing their stuff over things that you were like, why are you, like, did you not expect to wait more? Those kind of things. So it has switched, and that's been a little bit scary, and honestly, it hasn't been an easy thing to deal with. I do think you're also in a state where you feel like you're constantly being judged because, hey, we're trying to keep social distance. It's impossible at all points of a customer interaction. It just is.
Yeah.
At some point, somebody's going to be 3 feet apart, not 6.
Somebody has to hand you the food.
Yeah. And so, you feel judged, and then you feel like, well, they're here getting the food, so they're the problem in essence, because I have to be closer to 3, than 3 feet, but they're going to judge me for being closer to 3 feet, So it's been a really interesting time. And I try to tell myself and remind my team that every single person is dealing with loss right now. And it's different for everybody, right? For my daughter who's 18, it's prom. It's her senior trip. It's maybe walking down, the stage, getting her diploma with everybody. And that's real. For me, it might be I lost seeing that, or I feel terrible for her, or a loss of a trip, or loss of a job. there's no like Olympics where we're being medaled, right? Because clearly, if somebody lost a loved one, okay, they get the gold. Like they've lost more.
Yeah.
But it doesn't minimize my daughter's loss, who's 18 and is upset because she doesn't get to go on a senior trip. So everybody is dealing with loss, and I think that's what's causing some of the frustration. So.
Well, what did you use to create an active plan, an action plan?
Yeah, so this is number 3, right? Number 3 for us is create a clear action plan, and then even more important than creating that, prioritizing the steps. So, centrally, you have to set out a set of priorities and implement them with a high degree of autonomy. What I mean is you want to set these clear priorities, but then you do want to give people freedom within the priorities, if that makes sense. In other words, you want to let your team shape the way things get done. This is a real fluid situation, and overly micromanaging decisions is going to hobble your team's ability to respond quickly and effectively. And if you remember, one of my main jobs, right? Calm, safe, efficient, right? And then keep them on each other's team. So when you micromanage, it can kind of get in the way of that. So effective leaders, to me, let their teams make the best decisions they can, bearing in mind, hey, these are our priorities. Again, such as keeping people safe, keeping the customer safe, behaving ethically, those kind of things. But you do, in that autonomy, want to remain clear about what parameters they do need approval on. Does that make sense? Because it's a tension. There's tension there. So here's our priorities. Go at it. Run with it. Figure it out. Let's figure it out together. And you're very autonomous. Hey, wait a minute. You're deciding not to temp our workers on the way in because that makes us more efficient. But you can't make that decision. So that's been some of the tension is, hey, run with it, try things. But these things, these 14 things, you need permission to change. Because, again, I'm supposed to keep them safe. And these 14 things we think keeps them safe.
So it's important to have some non-negotiables, but maybe not on every single step.
And if you have too many non-negotiables, then it's frustrating for the team.
Yeah.
So, in this time of need, we need to be efficient and effective and innovative. We have to be agile and fast. And the worst situation are where leaders provide unclear or even worse, priorities that contradict each other. So you kind of have to make sure you're constantly being clear. All right, and then let me see what else we have here. I think the next one, Foster, I think we're all going to take, but I think Larry's going to kind of introduce it. One more thing on clear. The reality is that the more priorities that you have, the less helpful it is. It's kind of like if I was saying I want to be an astronaut and a doctor and a race car driver. You can't be everything. So you do have to make hard choices, and they do need to be made. And honestly, they're probably going to be made often during a crisis. But again, we still want to keep those priorities hyper clear.
Which brings us to the last point, which is being willing to pivot.
Right.
And, this goes way back. Benjamin Franklin actually said this. He said, change is the only constant in our life.
Yeah.
One's ability to adapt to changes will determine your success in life.
I should have got a video of Larry saying that.
So have we not changed lately? Nothing has been constant.
Yeah. Well, I think, Foster, you brought it up. 6 weeks ago, you weren't doing Zoom lessons to your teens or to your high schoolers, but you are now. And you've said that you've changed them how often?
Oh, almost every week. Week to week, there's something that changes.
Yep. And I feel like at the store, almost every other day, we're making what would have been 4 weeks ago a major change that we would have talked about to death. And now we're like, what do we think? All right, let's try it. And we're just implementing it because there's this need to pivot, right? We talked a little bit before the show started about how we're setting records from our 12 to 2 time period. And so what we've seen is even though we're overall down, we're being impacted by this, we're actually busier for a 2-hour period than ever. And so we are trying to figure out how to be quick, how to be efficient. And so that requires change. We've never run out 119 curbside orders in an hour before, but now we are. That's reality.
And so you guys are probably having to build systems on the fly.
That's right.
So I would recommend, if you want to go to Chick-fil-A at this time, go after 2.
Yes,
Just
I
hold off.
honestly probably would recommend that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I will say I'm a terrible Chick-fil-A employee. I've never had the app.
Yeah.
Guests used to come in all the time and ask me for advice. I was like, I've never used the app. I can't help you.
Yeah, it's pretty good actually.
It is. I downloaded it the other day because it was the convenience. You guys had a slammed parking lot drive-through, and it was
So
convenient.
was it quicker than waiting in drive-through for sure?
You know, I'll be honest. I know how fast you guys are at Hancock because I've worked there. I was blown away by how fast it was, though.
And you were at the Hancock location.
I was at the Hancock. I parked. There must have been like 10 or 12 other cars.
Yeah.
And I probably had my food within 5 or 6 minutes.
The other day I was, there's very little that I can do and be useful anymore. I can still bag a mean fry. But my best position now is I run orders out to cars. And I did 3.6 miles in an hour and 20 minutes the other day.
It shows. You're looking.
Gosh,
I mean, it's like
sweating
it's like Russell Crowe sitting across from me right now.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. That's nothing what it looks like. That's
This
why
Trish is a lucky lady.
That's why we're not on YouTube yet, because I have to lose another 10 pounds, Foster.
Well, this has been our special edition of the COVID-19.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll be our last. I think we could, in maybe another 4 weeks, Larry, be putting another set of 4 up there of great leadership during the COVID crisis.
Well, we especially want to thank some of the staff that's helping us, and we especially want to thank Isabella, who's doing our social media. If you've seen some of the social media, she's doing a fantastic job. We really want to thank her for that.
Well, and I would say, we haven't asked her yet, so we're not going to give it out right now, but Isabella is a truly amazing singer.
Yes.
And is kind of tiptoeing into that life and kind of recording an EP right now. So hopefully soon we'll give you some links to listen to her music.
Good idea. And when we're talking about Isabella and social media, we also want to thank ACS Creative for helping us with our website.
Yep.
And as it's growing and going, we just want to thank you. And if you need some help with your website, can help you at acscreative.com.
Yeah, Ed and his team.
Ed, thank you.
I could tell you were having...
Ed didn't come out quick enough there.
Anyways, we want to thank you guys for listening. As always, I'm Rocky DeStefano.
I'm Foster. I'm sorry it's been so long. I missed my cue right there.
Yeah, I forget your tagline. What are you?
I don't know that we've settled one yet. I'm Foster and I'm still learning. There we go.
Yeah, anyways, I'm Rocky DeStefano, and we want to help you be a leader. We understand, and we hope you understand that we are all on this journey together, and none of us is complete, but we do think it matters how you lead, and we want you to be somebody who's worth following.